Now, capital only flows where it feels protected. Transparent legal structures, regulatory consistency, and enforceable protections are not barriers to investment, they are the prerequisites for confidence. And so this session explores how legal frameworks enable capital to move across borders securely and efficiently. Please join me in welcoming to the stage Saad, Maniar, CEO at Baker Tilly UAE, Karim, Emam, Partner, International Tax, M&A Services at PwC Egypt, Dr. Mahmood Hussain, Founding Partner, M&CO Legal in the UAE, and moderating this session is Jayda Shoukry, Content Producer at Forbes Middle East. Please put your hands together for our speakers. Getting our panel to the stage, I just want to ask everybody to come forward, please. Be closer to the action where it is in the front, because we want you to be part of the conversation. Over to you, Jayda.
Yeah, don't worry, guys. We don't bite. These guys are great. I've been talking to them a whole lot. Today, the investment landscape, we always talk about deploying capital. But this comes after confidence, and a key component of that is having laws and regulations and experts who can really guide investors through this journey. So I'm very happy to be joined by these esteemed panelists. And we're going to look into everything that could potentially delay, block, or even expedite a certain deal. Now, to start us off, I wanted to ask, how is the global minimum tax changing how deals are structured today?
I think this is a very good question. So I think what the global minimum tax has introduced to us is that most of the capitals right now, most of the governments stop to compete by taxes, and it starts most of the incentives that the governments are already working on right now starts to be what we call it the performance tax incentives, that it's more linked to how does the capital business contributes to the economy. So the global minimum tax is at least make sure that there's a fairness in the tax burden across all capitals, all business per se.
Okay, perfect. Now, if we go into the legal issues that can often delay or block a deal, even when the investor is ready to commit, what do you think about that, Mr. Saad?
Yeah, first of all, the understanding of the laws and regulations is important. So when a foreign investor is coming into the country, for example, in the UAE, we have multiple regulators in different jurisdictions. And often we have noted that the foreign investor would not have an understanding of the different laws and regulations applicable to the company. And this often is found after the due diligence process. So due diligence issues identified. So certain non-negotiable things are already agreed, and they are going to proceed with that. But what happens is certain small trivial issues picked up in the due diligence process. Some of them could be legal, and the ego comes into the play as well. So, this can disrupt or delay the deal.
Okay, now, if we talk strictly about governance, where does it fail, and where do these failures show up when the investor is, moving through transactions?
Thank you very much. I think the first fundamental thing we should understand, most empirical studies shows that, first of all, the failure of the governance would happen. Then after that, the destruction of financial and values comes after that. So it's not the other way around. So basically, you would see company can make money, but they have a failure. But suddenly they will have this. Now, this is a very fundamental question. When I have my team doing M&A, for example, doing due diligence on one company, what I tell them, they said, okay, this company has good corporate governance policy. They translated the governance to process. I say, don't look to that. First of all, if you want to know the failure and see the issue, look to the minute of the meeting of the board. Is the board rubber stamp for the CEO, or they question the question? Read the minute carefully, and you would know. There is a lot of related party transaction? This is alarming for me as a lawyer. But most of the lawyer they have oversight these important issues. Now, third thing, asymmetry information. Is the information the market receiving is similar to the information the CEO is ensuring? Now, let me give you one example, real example in UAE to show you how is a good governance can make a failure, bad governance can make a failure and good one. I was company secretary at Do Telecom, and I was sitting with the CEO. He called me, come Mahmood to the room, come. I said, yes, we are launching Do Telecom, and Uthman Sultan told me, okay, you know what the chairman told me? I said, what did he tell you? He said, we need to do number campaign. I said, what is number campaign? He said, people book their number similar to Ittasalat number. And I said to him, okay. I said, anybody in the world cares about his number? I said, I was scared. I said, no, I don't, but my wife cares about her number. She doesn't want somebody else to call her. So they did the number campaign. But why? Because the relationship between the chairman knows his governance relationship where he advised the CEO what to do exactly. They did. And then how many people booked the new number similar? So the Salat number was 050, you took 055, same number. We got 500,000 people. 250 they paid. So before operation of Do, we have 125 million dirham in account because of good governance, because the chairman knew his role. He knows his role is to educate the CEO about culture. Because Usman came from France, he didn't know about our culture. That the culture element did 125. Now look where the crisis would come because of governance and culture. What happened next day? Chairman came and he said to me, oh, by the way, I told him, by the way, the CEO said what we would do, we want people to come to our outlet, to come to Do Shop, to see it and all of that. I said, yes. But the CEO is saying, I told the chairman, he said, he's so excited to bring the people to our shop. The chairman looked at me like that, said, the CEO thought it's good, you are a good man. But the chairman was sarcastic, saying, you will have a catastrophe. When everybody in UAE, people didn't take the option of sending their SIM card by the mail. They wanted, everybody was there in the office. So the Do had the first crisis because of governance as well, and less understanding of culture. So that is the early sign you have to look. Don't look to the policy. Don't look to the procedure. Go further. Go to see the culture of the organization. See how's the relation between CEO and the chairman. See how is the related party. How many related party transactions are there? If there is a lot, this is worrying me as a lawyer.
The details definitely reveal a lot more than just broad statements that are made. And knowing the ecosystem and the culture, as you said, plays a massive role. Part of this ecosystem for any investor, of course, is tax and tax structuring. From a deal perspective, what often catches investors off guard?
I think this is a very good question, and I'm going to build on the government's part because, like, governance as well became as an integral part of a tax structuring. Because there is right now, as we talked about the performance tax incentives, it is extremely important is that you link tax structures and legal tax structures with what we call it the economic substance. So the economic substance, because like having an on-shelf company is trying to achieve a certain efficiency in tax structures is not there anymore, and economic substance is extremely important. And economic substance that comes from the authorities, who's doing what, who's responsible, who's taking care, and all the terminology that's needed from a tax perspective. It's a legal terminology driven from governance first, and of course, how is this all being documented is what we usually use for the structures. So it's I think it's all integral parts. So the structures and the economic substance and so on.
If we look even broader, now we're not just focusing on a single structure, we're looking at cross-border investments. What are some of the things that cause friction and are hard to explain to investors who are used to navigating in maybe a different ecosystem or a different culture?
Yeah, so in my view, for the culture and the language, they are the two biggest barriers which brings the communication gap. And often this is misunderstood. So in many cases, what we have experienced is that, certain governance, certain practices are acceptable in one country, but they are not acceptable in the other country. And this kind of communication brings a lot of barrier to the deal.
Okay, now one of my favorite questions for this panel is quite simple, but I think it's critical. Strong laws don't always mean strong protections for investors. It can lead to complications or other undesired effects. So what really reassures an investor?
I think one of the things we should look to the empirical study, because I'm a professor of law, and I like always to go to the study, to surveys. When you look to World Bank Governance Index, they do survey on 200 economies, different economies all over the world. What they say is where the investor would be having the trust, it's not about the law. It's about the institution. What is an institution? It could be court, could be a regulatory body. As well, they want to know the enforcement. They want to know the outcome, predictable outcome. The investor prefer predictability than over perfectionist. So basically, you need the institution, you need the good law, but the good law without an institution is useless. Then you need to go to the next step. You need to see those institutions are effective. Let me give you an example. They want to see the law and the test. When 2009 financial crisis happened, we had issues here on the government level and the government subsidy. There where investors judge us and say you have a good law and you have a good courts. They see the IFC court handling, for example, Dubai wards, liquidation or bankruptcy. And then what they have said, they said, no, this government upheld to its commitment that to their institution, respect their laws and all of that. The law when it's in test, and test happen when you test the institution, you see the enforceability. No point at all having good law when the outcome is unpredictable for the law. So basically we need three elements. We need laws, we need an institution, we need a good enforcement, which will lead to positive outcome, actually.
Okay, now obviously we still factor in a lot of other things when we talk about reassuring investors. So how critical is having a clear exit or repatriation rules at the point of entry?
I think this is one of the most important things and it's very critical for any decisions and investments. An exit comes with a lot of requirements. Laws, of course, one of them. Taxes also another element. And with a lack of certainty in a different sophistication levels of tax administrations across the region, this can create some sort of uncertainty that, of course, impact the decision of investments and, of course, because of the exit. So what tax can help in such kind of decisions and create certainty is that, like, I think a lot of mechanisms that's already there. It's like whether it comes from an advanced ruling mechanisms or an agreements with tax administrations and so on and so forth. But what's extremely important as the part of the region is that what we call it a mutual agreed procedures, is that like was there any kind of conflicts between investors and the source and the resident source country that they invest in, it has to be mutually agreed between administration. So certainty is, plus the predictability is something that is extremely important for the exit that of course will impact the decision of investment.
Okay, if we look forward to what an ideal structure, we're talking something clean, something investment ready, what does it actually look like?
Does it really exist, that kind of a thing? I think the having the proper structure is non-negotiable, right? And in the ideal structure, I would assume that for the entity which is under consideration must have the ability to separate itself from the different line of business. And provided that kind of structure exists, the deal becomes a lot easier when it is at the final negotiation stage. And also the jurisdiction in which the structure is established is also important because the laws applicable in that jurisdiction may differ from the actual business operations. So it is important that the understanding of that particular jurisdiction is there, and it is well-regulated jurisdiction.
Absolutely, and I think this is something that's been reiterated in multiple panels today. We need stronger structures, we need clarity, and as you said, it needs to be predictable. The investor needs to know what risks may happen and what opportunities may arise. I want to thank you so much. Do you have a closing remark?
I wanted to add to what my learned colleague over here, Mr. Saad, said, because a lot of people will come to us, I want to establish a business in UAE, for example. You need to ask him question, what line of business would do? What is the risk appetite that you have? How's the structure would be? You would have, for example, we had sometimes client would come with the personal issues, not only related to business, because he say, I'm a Muslim, I have 3 daughters, and I have brothers and sisters and all of that. I want to Sharia inheritance, how am I gonna structure it? So basically a lot of those questions, because when you are advisor, you shouldn't look only at the financial, you should look to the culture. What is the value of the families? What the value they have? You need to embed it within the culture. And sometimes we as a lawyer or practitioner or professional, we advise, we look to one side, we look to the financial. Let's look to the culture. Let's look to the family. Look to this guy has 4 wives, for example. He's like having 50 children, and you want to put a governance for them. So it's a different than you have a son and daughter. So basically this is the complexity of that. And good advisor who would juggle all of those balls together and come up with the proper advice.
Absolutely. I think it's not just complexity. I think it's context. We need to always remember that business doesn't exist in isolation. The law isn't just operating away from everything else, and it really all melds into one giant ecosystem. Yeah. Thank you so much to my amazing panelists, and thank you so much to our amazing audience. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.